Hello, my name is Chirag Chaudhary, and today in this presentation, I'm going to discuss about the project that I have prepared for the secure programming for web. So in this project, I have followed the software development lifecycle as a methodology, wherein I started with the first phase of the software development lifecycle, which is requirement analysis. I analyze the business requirement, software and hardware requirement, functional and non-functional requirement, and at the last, the security requirement. After this, I started with the second phase, that is the architecture and design, wherein I started with the threat model for the application and then the use case, misuse case, and abuse case. Then I created a high-level application overview along with the sequence diagram, and at the end, I framed infrastructure diagram. Once the architecture and the design is done, I came to the third phase, that is implementation phase. Herein I did the implementation of all the actions that are performed by the admin and attendees, including the functioning of the database and the design the database. Then I did the security implementation. So after this, now I reached the fourth phase, wherein the testing of the source codes and the application was done, where my colleague Naveen Kumar Singh helped me and reviewed the code, wherein he find that there was no logging registration activity was added, which I worked on later and resolved. Apart from this, I did the functional testing and I find everything working properly, which then led to a non-functional testing for which I used Chrome developer tool and checked the performance of the web application, which I find okay. I also tested the performance of the database and find everything to be working properly. So the final phase was the development phase. So up till now my application was still in localhost and needed to deploy it to a live environment. Therefore, I deployed it on cloud Heroku platform. So coming to the technologies, in this IT cybersecurity workshop registration web application, so the deployment is done using different tools and technologies. There are multiple requirements to run this application, like a computer machine with good configurations, application server, a database server, and of course a network connectivity. So in this application is a modern PHP web application which is using MySQL database, and it is styled using Bootstrap 4. It is further deployed as a fully data-driven application to Heroku cloud hosting. The tools and the technologies that are used in this in developing this application are PHP as backend, and for front end I used HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap. For web server, I used XAMPP Apache server, which is an open source and is easily available over internet. I used MySQL database and chose Microsoft Visual Studio 2019 as the integrated development environment. I then further deployed my application over Heroku and GitHub platforms. So moving on to the next question, like which security measures did I implement in my application? So according to the security requirement, I analyzed that there were potential threats observed in this application. So to secure the application, I have implemented certain security measures such as hashing algorithm to protect the administrator credentials such as passwords. I have used MD5 function to encrypt the password of administrators. This will help in securing from the SQL injection. MD5 is an inbuilt function of PHP, and using this it encrypts password is saved, and that is saved in the database. So the other one is client-side input validation. This measure is used to validate the URL of the application. It provides security at URL level to make sure that the entered URL is valid. The third one is server-side input validation. Validation is performed on the data. It is performed at the server side before storing the data into the database in order to eliminate any malicious input. Thus, it protects from the cross-site scripting attack as well. The fourth one is database constraint, and in the database for each column of the table is provided by limited length of input, which means each column has a limitation on the length of the input and no column can be null. Fifth one is logging. In order to keep track of all the activities or actions performed by attendees, I have used monologue library of PHP that will create a log file. That log file will record all the actions of a user within a session. The sixth one and the last one is the HTTP SSL certificate. This web application is now secured by HTTP SSL certificate, as it helps in protecting the data of the user. It reduces the risk from phishing attacks and increases the search engine ranking. And it also shows the user that the web application can be trusted. So now let's start with a quick demo of the web application. Uh, so the URL is https and workshop register.herokuapp.com. So with this, we'll get the home page of the web application, wherein the user has the option and can register themselves by filling in the required details and submit. So just to give the demo, I'm filling in some details here. Let's take an example of Naveen. The first name is Naveen, the last name is. I'll choose a birth date randomly. Let's say Naveen was born in 1997 on March 23rd, and his domain expertise is ethical hacking. Let's just give email address as well, along with the number. So as soon as you submit, you will see that that a message saying that the operation has been completed, along with all your details in a card. So at the top of the page there is an option of viewing attendees, which can only be accessed by the administrator. Hence, no attendee can view the detail of all other attendees. This was as per attendees' point of view. So moving to the administrator, at the top right corner of the web page, there's an option to log in. So this is for admin login only, and the administrator needs to enter the username and password so as to log in. So I'll just log in as administrator. And the password. So once the administrator has logged in, he or she can view the list of all the attendees is given here. Also, as you can see, a column called call action, in which an admin has the option to view, edit, and delete the attendees. So for example, the attendee Naveen that we just created, we can actually view the details of Naveen by clicking on the view button and the view tab, and we can edit it as well as per our requirement. Then either we can just save changes or can just get back to the list, and if required we can even delete Naveen as well. As you can see, the Naveen is been deleted. So moving on to the database. Now let's talk about the database. After deploying the web application on Heroku Cloud platform, the database, which was initially on PHP admin, was then deployed to MySQL bench workbench. Now I'll give you an overview of the database. That the database name is registration, and there are 3 tables that I've created as attendee, specialties, and users. So any change made by the admin on the web application will be reflected in the database as well, as you can see. So for example, since I added my detail in the demo, these details are now available in this database as well. Moving back to the third question. So which secure coding guidelines and standards and secure design principles did I follow? So for this application, I have used OWASP security guidelines. OWASP is an internationally recognized organization that provides security guidelines and standards to software developers and companies like IT industries. More specifically, I have considered OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities report in order to secure my web application. According to the current list of OWASP top 10 security risks, I have implemented security solutions against few of them, such as SQL injection, cross-site scripting, broken authentication, security, sensitive data exposure, and insufficient logging. Moving to the fourth question, which testing strategies are implemented by me and why? So in this project, I have used three testing strategies. The first is manual code review. So I got help from my colleague Naveen Kumar Singh, who helped by reviewing the code and with an objective to look for any possible errors and security risk. He reviewed the code to the best of his knowledge and suggested to implement a logging measure in order to keep track of all the actions executed by the users or the administrators. The second one was the functional testing, where I performed the functional testing so as to verify whether all the actions of the administrator and the attendees are working properly. So I tested each phase of the application at unit level, and the result is that all the actions are working fine and giving expected result. Administrator is able to log in, view attendees, edit attendees, record and delete attendees. So whereas the user are able to register themselves successfully and can view their details. The third testing is the non-functional testing. So I have performed multiple tests in order to test the non-functionality parameter of my application. I used multiple tools for performing the test and to check the performance of the web application as well. I have used Google Developer Tools to check the performance of web application and SQL Workbench auditing report to check the performance of the database. Rest I have added to the report. Thank you.